hackers. Right off the bat, gonna hit you with a hot topic as of late. What changes are currently planned for the 600i? After numerous negative feedback from the community in terms of its slow speed, ugly weapon placement, the landing gear, bad shields, this person really doesn't like the 600i.
Yeah, sounds like there's lots of issues.
Now, in CIG's defense, yeah, we're going to start here. In CIG's defense, starting off the ship, one of the things that they were talking about was having medium components on it, and then realizing, man, the shields, the engines, all that probably needs to be a little bit more powerful. Ship's a little bit slow, yada, yada, yada. They probably came at it from a conservative point of view. Not politically speaking, conservative in terms of, let's deliver the ship this way. It's easier to buff a ship than it is to nerf a ship. Obviously, I mean, if you sit there and say, oh, we're nerfing the 600i, even more so than if you were to talk about, let's say, like a character in a video game, like let's say, like if my rogue were to get nerfed or something like that, it'd be pretty disappointing, but I could feel that I could I could work my way around that problem. But if you were to say, hey, I'm nerfing the ship that you just spent hundreds of dollars on, and I'm making it perform very weakly, you enter into a whole new territory. So I think what CIG was trying to do is let's play conservative, let's start it off slow, and it's easier to give things to the players rather than take them away. But of course, once again, based on player feedback, and that's kind of an important theme that we seem to have to touch on again and again, because even with CIG affirming that and saying, yes, no, this is something we're talking about and we want to hear the negative feedback, you're still going to get those people in the community who think that if you don't like a thing, that automatically you hate Star Citizen and you're not a part of the Star Citizen, hashtag I'm a Star Citizen family, and therefore you're a terrible human being and you should be lit on fire and pushed off a cliff because you're not a true believer. Right. And so, like when they're talking about things like weapon placement is something where I feel that criticism is valid. Criticism is valid because that can have unintended consequences on your gameplay. Some people will, they'll tell you, "Oh no, that's part of balance. That's part of balance." No, it isn't. If you want to balance a ship, give it more shields, take some shields away, make it faster, make it slower, make the guns bigger, make the guns, smaller. That's how you balance a ship. You don't balance a ship by creating something in the ship which automatically limits what a player can do, something that you can't easily go and change, right? You can change shield values by simply editing tables in the database. You can change engine performance, you can change weapon performance, cooling, all sorts of things like that. There's a myriad of ways available through those avenues to balance a ship, to make a ship perform the way you feel that it should perform in the game, to make it quote unquote balanced. Though there never really is such a thing as balance. It's an endless pursuit, but that's another video. But when you create a hard physical limit within that ship, something that players can't easily overcome, that becomes a bit of a design issue. And so I feel that kind of criticism is warranted and valid, especially when you hear, as you would hear in that asking all devs whatever show, they're talking about, okay, some of the feedback on the 600i interiors, that'll inform our decisions going into the 890 jump. That's going to kind of give us a different idea of where we want to go, or maybe just something that we want to keep in mind for the next ship. So that kind of criticism is important. That kind of functional criticism, if you will, is critical. And it's important to get, to make your voice heard in that way, and not to just let people just go, oh no, you hate Star Citizen because you don't like the way the cockpit looks. Get rid of him. It's that kind of criticism that's needed, because that helps kind of develop the game and make it a better game for everybody. Now, as for the criticism of the interior of the ship, I think that that's kind of a different story, because yesterday we were, oddly enough, talking about ship customization and now all of a sudden here we are. How weird. The interior customization of a ship could possibly be an option in the future. I saw one comment yesterday where someone was like, why don't we finish the game first before we start talking about ship customization? Of course. There needs to be a functional game first. This is something we're talking about down the road, over the horizon. Mainly we want to get a game that we can play, right? Not a game that we can kind of burn through really quickly if we're really going after trying to get as much of the content as possible. Whether you're a pirate or a law-abiders, you can burn through this game pretty darn quick, and then you're left with just the same stuff to do over and over again. Now, we need a functional game. We need a functional universe first, of course, but down the road, possibly, if you want to change the interior of a 600i, maybe that could be a ship customization option, But the truth is that for right now, the 600i's interior, even though I've made fun of it and I've commented on the fact that it had a sparse interior from the beginning, it should stay the way that it is. It should stay the way that it is. It shouldn't be stripped out and changed, because right now it is what it was supposed to be. If you look back at the brochures, that's exactly kind of what was delivered, and it is very true to the brochure on the interior. And yes, it is a very sparse interior, but that's what CIG sold. And this is kind of where we enter into a bit of a weird gray area, where there are people who buy ships because they like the ship that they see. They like the stats, they like the whatever physical, artistic aspects of it. They like the way the ship is. They go, that's the ship that I want. I'm gonna buy that ship. Whereas there are other people who buy a ship and they kind of think, but what if they change this, and this? And they're not talking about functional elements. They're talking about subjective elements, like artistic. How do I want the interior? Does it have a good flow? Does it have a nice design? Or is the color palette that I would want? That sort of thing. But that's nothing that really impacts gameplay, right? That's nothing that, I can't see down, so I can't land my ship. Or I have to land my ship in third person or with great difficulty. That's a functional complaint, and that's a valid complaint. But a subjective complaint is something that is real, but it's not something that needs to be dealt with immediately. And so, though I agree that the 600i's interior is not my idea of an interior, certainly, it is as it was sold, right? It is as it was sold and as it was presented to the community. It's almost a weird kind of parallel of the Herald concept sale situation, when originally an asymmetrical Herald was sold, and there was a very vocal component of the community, bigger, larger, don't know, who spoke out against that and said, we don't want an asymmetrical ship. We don't want an asymmetrical ship. We want that changed, right? And so a lot of us were like, no. We bought an asymmetrical Herald, but then, Chris he was like, no. If I had known about that, I wouldn't have shown you guys the asymmetrical Herald. And he did say that on 10 for the Chairman, remember. And so the ship got changed. by a group of people who didn't like the ship the way it was. They wanted it to be something different, and that had repercussions, and there was a lot of people who were pretty pissed off in the community, and rightly so, that what they had bought had been changed because of the subjective views of different members of the community. Some people kind of disguised it as a functional argument, like, oh, well, you know, it would be so difficult for the physics engine to compensate for the fact that the ship is unevenly balanced, right? What about the scythe? What about the Van Duel scythe? Asymmetrical. Oh, no, but that's fine. You know, this ship, the Caterpillar, asymmetrical. Oh, no, that's fine too, but this is the ship that I want, but I want it to look different. Really? So now everyone's got to change based on your point of view. So I think that what you could do in the future, once there's a finished game there, if you're a Star Citizen developer, you can look at taking the 600i and making the interior customizable, changing it, giving people different options with that ship. Either, and you know, I don't want people to get mad because I'm giving them ideas to monetize, but either as a purchasable option or as an upgrade option. Let's say, you know, we have touring, we have exploration. What if we had touring, the touring XT model, and they could just side grade to the touring XT model that had a different interior, or they could side grade, you know, at a nominal cost or at no cost to, you know, exploration XT model, and it just has a different configuration on the inside, something that can be revisited in the future. If you open up the door to that and say, we're willing to talk about this in the future, then I think you can kind of satisfy the subjective likes and dislikes of a lot of the community. So even though I do agree with the fact that I don't like the interior of the 600i, I also don't own a 600i, and you know, had I bought a 600i, I wouldn't have been buying it based on the interior. I would have bought it based on the, you know, the underwhelming weapons, the low shield capacity and low speed. That's what I would have bought it for. I mean, right? But I think you get what I'm saying. Is it's just, once again, that, like, the interior is a subjective thing. It's not a functional thing. So even though you might not like it, there might be people out there who do, and who bought that ship based on what it actually was presented as, versus didn't buy it and then say, well, now I'm going to argue to have it changed because I like this part, but I don't like that part. And even though that part is subjective, I still think it should be the way I want it to be. And so I find that kind of a sketchy argument, you know, to be honest. I feel that if you bought a ship wanting to make subjective changes to it rather than functional changes, I find that a little suspect, to be honest. But anyways, yeah, that's my view on this 600i situation. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.